Okay, so when you hear the word Monaco, what do you picture? I bet it's something like James Bond at a casino, right? Or maybe those massive super yachts in the harbor, the roar of Formula One cars. It's this image of just impossible glamour. But the real story of how this tiny nation even exists, it's so much more dramatic. It's a wild tale of cunning, huge risks, and constant reinvention. So let's get into how they pulled it off.
First, just to get our bearings, you need to understand how unbelievably small Monaco is. All that power, all that wealth, is packed into a space that is smaller than Central Park in New York City. Seriously, you could walk across the entire country in like an hour. It's literally this glittering, powerful city-state built on a single rock. And that, right there, is the big question, isn't it? How on earth did this tiny, resource-poor fortress that was always under threat from bigger neighbors not only survive for over 700 years, but turn itself into one of the most famous brands in the world? Well, the answer is basically a masterclass in being audacious, in reinventing yourself, and in making some very, very big bets.
To really get Monaco, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. And you can forget any kind of fairy tale story. This was a beginning written in steel and, honestly, pure deception. It all started with a really clever trick.
This is it, the moment it all began. This guy, Francesco Grimaldi, his nickname was the Malicious One, which tells you a lot. He shows up at the gates of this fortress on the Rock of Monaco, and he's dressed up like a monk, asking for a place to stay for the night. As soon as they let him in, boom, he and his men pull out their swords and take the fortress by force. That single, audacious act established the Grimaldi dynasty. And you know what? That spirit has pretty much defined Monaco ever since.
Right away, the Grimaldis showed they were politically brilliant. So in the Middle Ages, you had this massive rivalry between the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor. It was like the biggest power struggle on the continent. The Grimaldis had to pick a side. They went with Team Pope, which gave them a super powerful protector. It was the first of many, many shrewd moves that made sure the little rock wouldn't just get swallowed up. And check this out. It perfectly illustrates how they saw themselves. Their official family motto is Dio Juvante, which means with God's help. Now sure, it's a nod to their alliance with the Pope, but it's also a direct reference to their founding story, right? The guy who captured the fortress was disguised as a man of God. It frames their entire history as the story of divinely assisted gutsiness.
So for centuries, Monaco gets by with these clever alliances. But then we get to the 19th century, and that just wasn't going to cut it anymore. The Principality faced a crisis that nearly wiped it off the map. This time the solution wasn't a trick, it was a gamble of absolutely epic proportions. In 1848, these two towns, Menton and Roquebrune, which were basically the entire agricultural and economic engine of Monaco, they declared independence. And just like that, the Principality lost 95% of its territory. Can you even imagine that? It was a total catastrophe.
All of a sudden, Monaco was just the rock again. It had no farms, no industry, no money. The Grimaldi family were rulers of a country that was staring bankruptcy and total collapse right in the face. They needed a miracle. They needed a completely new reason to even exist.
And wow, what a solution they came up with. The thinking was, if we can't make money from our land, let's make it from luck. They decided to turn their tiny, failing state into a playground for Europe's super rich. A place where the elite could come and do something that was illegal almost everywhere else: gamble.
You see, the Monte Carlo casino wasn't just some building. It was a revolutionary new business model for an entire country. It was an economic engine designed to save a nation. And it worked so well that pretty soon, Monaco was able to get rid of income tax for its own citizens. That cemented its future as a tax haven. It was a complete reinvention, a total pivot from lemons to luxury.
Okay, let's fast forward to the middle of the 20th century. And guess what? Monaco's in trouble again. After World War II, that old world glamour of the casino had really faded. The country needed another reinvention. It needed a new kind of magic.
The war years were incredibly dark. Monaco found itself occupied, first by Italy and then by Germany. Its neutrality was completely violated, its reputation was in tatters, and the post-war economy was just tanking. The old-school aristocrats used to fill the casino. They were gone. Monaco was becoming a shadow of what it once was.
And then enter Prince Rainier III. He saw the problem with crystal clarity and came up with this incredibly audacious plan. He knew he had to rebrand Monaco for a new age, attract a new kind of money. And to do that, he needed something huge. He needed a story the whole world would pay attention to.
And this was his masterstroke. He married Grace Kelly, one of the biggest movie stars in Hollywood.
In one move, he fused the glamour of American cinema with the prestige of European royalty. I mean, it was the ultimate PR campaign. It was dubbed the wedding of the century, and it put Monaco on the front page of every newspaper, rebranding it overnight as the capital of modern cool.
But this era wasn't just about glamour. Rainier was also modernizing the country behind the scenes. In 1962, he brought in a new constitution that ended absolute monarchy and set up a more modern government. He was building a whole new foundation for the state, both in its image and in how it actually worked.
But Rainier still had one massive problem that no amount of branding or PR could solve. Monaco was still just a rock. If it was going to grow, it had to do something that sounded impossible. It had to literally conquer the sea.
Prince Rainier earned himself the nickname the Builder Prince, and boy did he live up to it. He started some of the most ambitious projects in Monaco's history, physically expanding the country's borders by building new land right out of the Mediterranean Sea.
I mean, just look at this growth. It started with creating the Font-Viel district back in the 70s, and it's still going today with the brand new Marittera Eco-District. Monaco has been in a constant state of expansion. It is an absolutely incredible feat of engineering.
So what's the result of all this? Get this. Monaco has increased its landmass by over 20%. A fifth of the entire country literally did not exist a few decades ago. It's the ultimate proof of their strategy. When you can't expand out, you build out. It's just the perfect expression of Monaco's absolute will to survive and to thrive.
Which brings us to today. Modern Monaco is the product of all these different layers of history, right? You've got the cunning fortress, the gambler's paradise, the Hollywood fairy tale, and the engineered coastline all mashed together. And now it's facing a whole new set of challenges for the 21st century.
Because the world has changed. The old way of doing things is under a microscope now. Monaco has to somehow balance its long tradition of privacy with these new global demands for financial transparency. And it has to figure out how to reconcile its image of hyper-luxury with the urgent need for environmental sustainability, which is something these new eco-districts are trying to address.
When you really look at it, Monaco's story isn't just about princes and weddings. It's this continuous cycle of facing a crisis and then making a radical reinvention. Every single time it has faced collapse, it has made a bold, completely transformative bet on a new future. From a monk's disguise to a casino's roulette wheel, from a Hollywood princess to literally building new land out of the sea, Monaco has always placed a bet on its own survival. Which leaves us with one final big question. In a world that's demanding sustainability and transparency, what's Monaco's next great gamble going to be?